Mygovana melanin. So in today's video, I am going to talk all about otherkins and Therians. And the Therians are basically those that really associate themselves with an animal. And so you may have seen videos all over YouTube or even in the news. Some people talk about how, oh, look at this guy. It's funny because he thinks he's a dog and he carries on his life in that kind of sense where he is embracing the wolf personality or somebody's embracing a sheep personality. It really is all about what each individual connects to and the animal that they feel is really one with them. And another kin is somebody who, like me, who definitely feels like they were born into a human society, but they themselves contain a soul that is not quite all human, that there is something else there, and that's what an otherkin is. They are human, they have a very human part, and I don't think any of them really deny human society, but they're also very much aware of another part of their soul that exists that shows them that they're a little bit different than humans, and a lot of times this kind of amplifies the way that they think about society and the way that they live their life, that they're not going to be interested in the same thing that most humans may be interested in. They might have a different type of interest. So those are the kind of two types of energies that are coming more into the world. And some people may see it as evil and something that might herald the, new Satan type of new world order coming in. But I see it a little bit differently, and I wanted to give you my perspective. I kind of mapped out my own type of soul as an otherkin because I know that in my whole channel, basically I resonate with the Palladians and I also resonate with the Elves of Tolkien. And I put that together and I realized like what that actually meant and who I was as an individual. So I mapped out my own soul here, and you can see basically how I view God is it is the all-encompassing, the universal mind of the entire multiverse, because I don't think that we have just one universe. God is somewhere above time and space and is connected to all of us through the mind. Therefore, God itself seems to have something to do with consciousness. I believe that God is pure consciousness and that we can all tap into this and we can reach that point of our unity with all things as God is existing within everything. So that's where I view God. And I can see that this type of energy exists within all world religions, but some people will interpret it to be a lesser form of a god that is more of a physical deity that reigns over others in judgment. And I see it more as a universal mind that we're all trying to, within our lives, walk back up the ladder of consciousness in order to be at that state of total remembrance, awakening, and bliss within. Because when you are God, or you're in this godhood state of consciousness, you don't suffer anymore on earth. You don't have that same type of physical experience. Everything becomes one that is just based on observation. And so objectivity really comes from this place where you don't put yourself in a subjective point of view on earth, and you're looking at everything from an objective view of how God would see everything. And to some people like Ayn Rand and others that really were proponents of objectivism, they felt that that is the most just, that is the most equal, and that is the most balanced point of view, because you are not in your subjective experience of your ego, and you're actually coming from the objective point of view of God. So now you understand where I believe that God is as far as the universal mind. And this is a non-physical dimension, but everything here is a physical dimension of space. And I'll get a little bit closer. So this is our physical space. And this is Earth, which I was born on and I'm part of. And then I drew the Pleiades over here. And then I drew a parallel world of fairyland, basically a parallel world that exists that is close and is neighboring with Earth. But there exists all your most highest imaginations and mythological creatures, every type of being and creature that humans have defined within their imagination has come from the fairy land. Now, I want you to be clear on something. I do not think that this exists separate from this. Everything comes from the main creative source, our prime creative source, which is pure mind. So fairyland is here, Pleiades is here, and I am here. This is me in my ego on Earth. And what has happened to me is, as I went through my awakening, and other people have go through their awakenings, what happens is your ego identity starts to extend outward. So you're no longer just Bob on Earth with your earthly problems, your earthly issues, and your earthly joys and pleasures, but you actually start to expand outward into space. Literally, your soul, your ego starts to expand outward onto other planets that you may resonate with. You may have heard messages coming from those particular beings that you just really, it just really aligns to your values and who you are as a person. The Pleiadians align to my values. I mean, they've talked about nature, they've talked about all of these things to Billy Meyer, and they've been involved with helping humanity. That is my type of values of where I feel my soul aligns towards. Fairyland is also part of my values as far as my dreams, my visions, my versions of magic and myth and legends and where it all comes from, and how this really just represents our higher idealized versions of ourselves in a sense. And so this is my Elven soul, and this is my Pleiadian soul. And these two have expanded my ego outward into other dimensions of reality. Now, this, I think, is what's going on with a lot of people on Earth. They're actually expanding their identity outwards towards other realms, parallel worlds, and also other planets. This, to me, is a symbol of expansion of space, of consciousness, that as space is expanding and basically new worlds and new universes are being created, it also is a reflection of new identities of human beings also being realized and created within. So an otherkin or a Therian or somebody who just basically resonates with something else other than being human, they are now taking in other identities. To me, that actually symbolizes expansion of the self. So it's not about being in La La Land or being, crazy. It's actually, what it means is that you are grasping a fuller identity of the universe and of the cosmos and finding how you are relating to it. So I said this before in another video. Any people who believe that they are star seeds and are resonating with different planets, that is their ego that is expanding outward into other parts of the cosmos, and they are experiencing themselves in a futuristic way, and they're seeing how it kind of fits in with humanity, of all these aliens that have been part of all these messages that have been given to Earth are really to help humans realize a truer version of themselves and enter into a more idealistic future for all. That's really what it is. So that's what an otherkin is. It's someone who is actually having their identities expand outward and to be more inclusive of other parallel worlds and other planets that exist in this vacuum of space that is created by the universal mind that many call God. Now, I want you to get closer here. And what I also wrote is here, angels. So here is the angel identity. So when somebody thinks that they're an earth angel or they're a guardian or they are an angelic spirit on earth, what they are doing is their ego, now this is where it gets very interesting, their ego is no longer separate from the God consciousness, meaning that now your ego is actually embracing, your whole identity is embracing the whole. And you are starting to feel like you are a worker towards it, you're a servant towards it. The actual word Muslim means a servant to God. That's really what it means. A submitter to God, a servant to God. So basically, what it means is that somebody who decides to serve whatever their version of God is. And that's where the problem comes in, because so many different people have so many different interpretations of what God is. So their servitude and their interpretation of doing God's will on earth will be different. But that all depends on where your heart is, where your mind is, what soul, what frequency, what vibration your soul is at, and how you really view that servitude towards the whole. And this has been the major problem within religion, is that we've had different ideas and interpretations of what God truly is. As an INFJ, I am thinking of the most beneficial version of what God is, which is really a universal consciousness that extends its rays outward to all beings in the universe and is connected to everyone through the mind. That to me is the most fair, balanced, non-emotional, objective source of our reality and what we are doing here as far as perceiving our reality around us. But I know that other people have other interpretations of what God is. Some people think that it is a true being with arms and legs, sitting there dictating things about the universe. Some people think of it as many different gods and goddesses working together as one collective. I mean, there is so many different ways that you can interpret this. And this is really what causes most of the majority of the problems within religion. That one word Muslim causes so many problems because some people will see it as being a servitude to their version of what God is. But I always called myself a Muslim very loosely, in the idea that I looked at it as a mystic, in the idea that I knew and understood kind of what the flow of creation is going towards, is life, is expansion of the self and an awareness. So I am a servant to that type of energy on earth. And that's kind of why I considered myself a Muslim, but I also consider myself a Christian, and I consider myself a Hindu. I am part of all religions. I can see myself in that. And so I wanted to show you what is going on with souls that are starting to identify with something else besides being human. And I have a theory that this universe, I do not believe that there's endings to anything. I believe that it's always recreated. But I do have a theory that this universe, whatever it is, this universal mind is closing its eye of perception, in a sense. And so what's happening is, as the eye is closing to no longer perceive duality and perceive things opposite of itself or different from itself, what's happening is all souls on earth are starting to be called together, in a sense. Their souls are aligning to each other, and they are also aligning to other parts of the galaxies. And so I believe that it's in some way a contraction and bringing people together. So I see it as a very good thing, because obviously I believe that when that happens, I believe that then reflection happens about that past universal dream in the multiverse, or maybe it's just one universe at a time, and then a new creation starts again. So I have no fear about that eye closing. Some people do. I can get into that more later. I have a video coming up about my review of an occult book that really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I would like to talk about the dark and the light side of the Illuminati and of the secret societies in the world, because nothing is ever truly all dark and nothing is ever truly all light. And so because everything comes from the source, and nothing really truly is in duality, but we experience it as so in kind of the illusion of space. So that's what Otherkins and Therians are doing. They are expanding their identities out towards something other than just the earthly soul. Meaning, born on Earth, stuck to the earthly timeline, and, basically feeling very attached to human ideals and social norms and things like that. An otherkin will feel just different inside. And it really is truly hard to explain, and it looks a little bit crazy to others. Now, I have to say, as an otherkin myself, so the thing about me as relating to the elves, well, elves are very humanoid. So I can have and enjoy a human type of lifestyle where I am perfectly human and I enjoy everything that a human does. But I employ some of the ethics and the codes that I find within Tolkien to reflect who I truly am inside. It does nothing to do to inhibit my type of growth or my experiences on Earth. I basically am experiencing everything that a normal human would. The one thing I would caution on that I do feel deep inside is if you are an otherkin and you take on some type of persona that is almost impossible to experience your authentic soul, meaning, well, you could take an animal, for example. There are some ways that you can incorporate your wolf personality into your life, but wearing a furry suit all the time is not going to be a way that you can really assimilate well into society. And it will ostracize you, and it will cause you conflicts in relationships, and it might be very difficult to live within the society. So you have to find a way of being very practical and having common sense with your otherkin identity. You can very much feel very connected and very aligned to a certain animal, but you might not necessarily have to take on the same animal characteristics of, crawling on the floor, sniffing other people's butts and crotches like a dog would, okay? Because that might not make you a lot of friends in society, and it might cause a lot of problems. But you can do other things. You can incorporate the loyalty of dogs. You can really observe dogs' behaviors or the wolf's behaviors and how they, you could really get into like National Geographic videos and all these nature videos, and you could really feel yourself kind of merging with that consciousness. And kind of like what I do with the elves of Tolkien. I analyze Tolkien's elves, and then I merge my consciousness. I kind of already was there. I'm very much similar to that type of character that Tolkien wrote about. But I merge my consciousness more by studying the words of Tolkien and understanding how the elves of Tolkien really did relate to one another and how they acted. You can do the same thing as an otherkin or as a Therian. You do not have to go all out and look like the animal. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the outside. It could be on the inside. You could just carry the characteristics of that particular animal, and you could do a lot of research and study into it and really harness that same type of energy as the animal, whether they be a predatorial animal, whether they be a gentle, docile animal. You can kind of take in those types of energies into you. And I believe that that will help Earth expand its perceptions of one another. So I don't think that otherkins or Therians are actually a bad thing. I actually think that it's a really good thing. And if more people can accept them, but also kind of teach a little bit about common sense, like we should definitely make some boundaries. You shouldn't be able to have to come to work in a furry dog suit. I mean, it's just things like that have to be kind of, I guess, there has to be some type of wisdom within being an otherkin. You have to be able to relate well to society. Otherwise, you will miss out on relationships with others. You'll miss out the opportunity of connecting and having joy. And you'll always feel like people are making fun of you and are causing you problems. Whereas you could be more spiritual about your experience as an otherkin, where you are relating to other parallel worlds. I mean, I relate to the fairy world, but I'm not going to wear wings everywhere I go. I relate to the elves. I'm not going to wear ears everywhere I go. I do like to dress up as an elf when I can get a chance to, but at the same time, I have common sense with it. And really what I'm trying to do is bridge the gap between those that think otherkins and this type of personality is something that's a mark of the devil, and just show that no, it's expansion of perception, and of the self. And hopefully that helps you, because if you're somebody that relates to a type of animal and you're kind of confused, well, how far do I go with it? Do I wear a furry suit? Do I go to furry parties? Do I do all these things that, you know, a lot of otherkins are doing? I would say be wise with it. You know, look in your life and say, well, is this a really safe way to be? Can I keep a job and keep food on the table acting this way? Or is there some other way that I can embrace the mannerisms and have it almost be like an inner spirituality of the animals that I would like to be seen as or would like to connect to? And that's how I relate it with the elves. I take on their mannerisms and their behaviors towards other characters within Middle-earth, and that is how I apply it to my own life. So I hope that this helped you and gave you a little bit more clarity of how I truly believe that everything really comes from our prime creative source, the universal mind, and really what's going on is just the expansion of perceptions. And I talked about in my other videos about dimensions. Dimensions really are perceptions and perspectives that are opening up. That's really all that dimensions really are, on a physical level and also in a spiritual, emotional level as well. That as you rise up in different and higher dimensions, your perceptions of reality is going to widen. You're going to allow more things into your life a little bit more easily because you'll be entering into more of that unity consciousness where you don't judge all souls on earth and you see the unity within them and towards you. And this is what's really going to lead you to a more peaceful life. So I was very serious in the sense that, you know, the students that come to me on my channel are going to get the benefit of dissolving duality, because that is what I am all about. I am here to help bring everybody closer to this prime creative source. Whatever that source is in your own mind, I just want you to see it as loving, creative, and expansive, and wanting life to go on and to be experienced. If you are an otherkin and if you're a Therian, maybe you can kind of take some of these tips and suggestions, be your own self, absolutely have a blast experiencing the life in which you wish to create on Earth. But just try to think of the best ways to apply these soul alignments. I mean, if you feel like you're a demon, or if you feel like you're a vampire, or if you feel like you're a werewolf, or if you feel like all these different types of mythological creatures like dragons and unicorns, how can you relate that into your life and apply it in a way that doesn't disconnect you from others and actually does open up your experiences more, and it doesn't get you feeling depressed and feeling isolated from society, but somehow maybe you can just harness that energy of those particular animals and images into your life and show people a little bit of magic and a little bit of the mystical that does exist, because nothing comes from a vacuum. Everything comes from a higher mind. And I do believe that. It's just about the different consciousness levels that make you aware of it or not. So Han and Lei for watching, and I will see you on the next video.